ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रम् अतो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरते ये उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अनन्तगुणपूर्णत्वादगम्याय सुरैरपि सर्वेष्टदात्रे देवानां नमो नारायणाय ते. So good morning, good evening and good afternoon for friends who have joined for the ninth session of this amazing, wonderful Upanishad, Talavakara Upanishad, also known as Kena Upanishad. Let's always think about the rishis for this: Chaturmukha Brahma, Sadashiva, Parvati, Talavakara Rishi, and all the acharyas. Devata for this Upanishad is Vishnu Namaka Paramatma, who goes with infinite names, including Rishi, Kesha, Kapila, Aniruddha, Gayatri, who are special names for contemplation when we are studying this Upanishad. The chandas for this Upanishad generally tends to be in Anushtup, which is the predominant chandas for this particular Upanishad. But you also have Trishtup and Jagati that come along in various adhyayas. So thinking about chandas, let's never forget we also need to have contemplation of the devatas who are the abhimanis of the chandas. For Anushtup, which has got 32 syllables, it's Rohini, who is the consort of Chandra. And then for Trishtub, which has got 44 syllables, it's Sachi, who is the consort of Indra Devata. So after having had a contemplation of this, let's make Pravesha into the Upanishad. So where are we? We are still in the first Kanda. So we have been doing Kena Upanishad for a couple of months or so, and we are still in the Pratama Kandaha. It's got 9 verses. We have done, I think, around 4 verses so far. What is the background to it? Let's remind ourselves. So Chaturmukha Brahma is in the Meru mountain in one of its peak called the Vaijayanta. He is in silent contemplation about Narayana. Rudra approaches him in Vaijayanta mountain and asks him some pertinent questions. For his, for various reasons, he is asking these questions. One is he wants to, firm up his knowledge, and he wants to get extra information, and he also wants to ask this question on behalf of all of us in samsara here. So what was that question? Om kene shitam patati preshitam manaha kena pranaha pratamaha praiti yuktaha kene shitam vacham imam vadanti chakshushrotram kavudevo yunakti. Why do these 5 organs of sense organs of that Rudra has asked, these 5 sense organs, how do they work? What do they work? That is the recurring theme throughout this first 4 verses, if you remember. And immediately Chaturmukha, thinking about Narayana in contemplation, he says that guy is Shotrasya Shotram, Manasa Mano, Yadvachaha Vacham, Savu Pranasya Pranaha, Chakshuhu Atimuchya Diraha, Pretya Asma Lokad Amruta Bhavati. And he said, if you knew about the first 3 lines that I've told you so far, what are the benefits? It's not just benefits of just saying something and then and getting on and doing a routine samsara. No. If we take these 3 lines that Chaturmukha is saying, Shrotrasya Shrotram, Manasa Mano, Yadvachaha Vacham, Savupranasya Pranaha, Chakshushash Chakshuhu. So the chaps who know about this entity that controls these 5 organs, the benefits for him is Pretya Asma Lokad Amruta Bhavati. So that person, that soul that knows these truths about this Brahman, when makes that onward, upward journey, will go to a particular direction where he will never return and eventually go to liberation. So that is the benefit, the huge benefit that we have by actually understanding the meanings of the second verse, and we have done I think a fairly good amount of chintana and anusandana about the second verse. Then of course the Chaturmukha goes on explaining it to Rudra about this Brahma Tattva. Okay, so remember, this is interesting. Chaturmukha is teaching Panchamukha. Panchamukhi is Rudra, Chaturmukha is Chaturmukha Brahma. Chaturmukha is teaching Panchamukhi about this entity, okay, called Brahman. But he says, yes, this guy is so big, but the fact of the matter is, Natatra Chakshur Gachati, Navag Gachati, no Manaha. The eyes can't reach him. The Natatra Chakshur Gachati, Chakshuhu, eyes can't see him. Navag Gachati, the speech cannot describe him fully. No Manaha, the mind cannot grasp him. Okay? It's giving all these puzzling, cryptic messages for us. Na vidmaha, we can't even know in general terms what this guy actually is, what this Brahman actually is. We can't even know him in general terms, let alone na vijanimo. We cannot know him even from its special aspects of it. So we don't have general knowledge of him. We cannot get the general knowledge of him fully. We cannot get the special knowledge of each aspect fully. About what? Yat etat anushishyat. How he is controlling all this, how he is controlling all these indriyas that were discussed in the second verse, and by implication the whole eightfold cosmic dispensations of the universe, how he is doing. Okay? We just don't have a clue. Okay? That is the basic starting point. We actually do not have a clue. If anybody says they know how Brahman does it, they actually do not know, is the discussion in the next adhyaya. But the basic fact is, we actually do not know. Okay. Then the question is, why is it that we can't know him fully? Why is it that we can't know his general aspects and specific aspects? This is the verse that we did last week, the fourth verse. Anyadeva tadviditad, ato aviditad, adi. Iti sushruma purvesham yenastad vyachachakshire. So Vishnu is the highest ontological entity, is what this particular verse, the fourth verse, was telling us. So the previous verse, the third verse, Natatra Chakshur Gachati Navag Gachati no Manaha, we understood that, this was the discussion on the epistemological aspect of Vedic philosophy, that knowledge, the pure knowledge and the means to knowledge. Okay, means to knowledge, that is chakshu, pratyaksha, vak, speech, manaha, anumana, manana, anumana. So the three modes of knowledge, we actually cannot have a full knowledge of Brahman. We cannot have the three roots of knowledge that we have. And also the second line was talking about na vidmaha na vijanimaha, talking about the clarity of knowledge among sentient beings. So that is a much deeper levels of Vedic philosophy, actually thinking about the clarity of knowledge of sentient beings. We all do not have the same clarity of even an ice cream. Okay, an ant, as we have done it before, an ant, a worm, an insect, a human, an animal, they all have a different knowledge of an ice cream that is in front of it. Okay, such is how the knowledge of Brahman is. Only Brahman alone has his knowledge. He is the only person he can have full knowledge of himself, whereas all others have a reducing clarity of knowledge, not only about Brahman but also of the external world. And we have spent a lot of time talking about that Pramana Lakshana of Srimad Acharya when we were dealing with the third verse. Then we did about Anyadeva Tad Viditat and so on, we did Tattva Sankyana and Tattva Viveka, talking about the ontological entities that Srimad Acharya has given us a complete classification of all those entities that are out there, tattvas that are out there. Okay, he has given that. So that is what this verse actually spoke very well, isn't it? This person, we cannot have a general knowledge or a specific knowledge, because this one is an entirely different category. There's nothing like him in the universe. There's nothing like him in this material universe. He is completely different, is what Chaturmukha wants to say. And how does he bring about that idea? Again, in very puzzling words, but words with deep philosophical significance. He said, Anyadeva tad viditad, ato aviditad adi. Viditad and aviditad. So he said there are entities in the universe called the Viditats, and there are also entities in the universe that are Aviditat. Okay, so we talk about the visible universe and the invisible universe. The visible universe is that universe that we can perceive with our sense organs or all the instruments like telescopes and so on. That is called the visible universe. But that doesn't mean that is all is the universe. There are lots of other aspects of the universe that are completely invisible to us. So that is one view of it. So Viditat. What is that viditat? That word viditat is quite comprehensive. That which we know. Viditat also means that which is manifested or vyakta. Viditat also means sat. Sat means that which is manifested and we can see it, that which is gross and we can see it with our eyes. Earth, water, and fire. Sat also means existent entities in the universe, that is bhava or positive entities in the universe. Okay, or it also means the world of matter and souls, the matters we see and the souls we, how do we know the souls are there? Because again Acharya has tell us, you can actually infer the existence of souls in other beings cheshta lingena. So when something moves, something is doing things, then we know that cheshta, through the cheshta we know that is the linga for that there is a jiva in that thing. An animal moves, a human body moves when there is a soul. So we are able to understand that there are other living things and there are also world of matter. Okay, all these chaps are grouped under this idea of viditat. Okay, and our Chaturmukha said viditat tat anyadeva. All the things that you know in the universe, this entity is different from that. These are all very clear statements, no controversies here at all. Aviditat. What about things that we do not know? So aviditat means which we do not know. I told you just now about this invisible universe that is beyond our, there is the visible universe, there is the invisible universe. So that which we do not know, it is even beyond that. That aviditat also means unmanifested. Avyakta is unmanifested. So this aviditat also means avyakta or the unmanifested. It also means the asat, which is air and space, because they are unmanifested in the sense they cannot come under the purview of our sense organs like eyes. Yeah? The gross, they are not gross. That which is not gross is called asat. That which is gross is called sat in Vedic philosophy. Okay, then of course asat, which we are all familiar, means abhava, non-existent. And there are certain entities that are sada abhava. They're always eternally non-existent, such as Sasi Vishana, Kurma Roma, Gagana Kusuma. Okay, these are objects of knowledge, but not objects of valid cognition. Yeah, I can draw a tortoise and I can make hair on it, so that is, it is an object. Yeah, I know, I get a knowledge object of that when I draw it, but it is not an object of valid cognition in the sense it does not exist out there in the universe. Yeah, really it does not exist. So even even those sada abhavas, which is also called aviditat, Chaturmukha says this entity is even different from him, from these things. So aviditat means so many meanings. Then of course, very important for our discussion today and which we did last week is avyakta tattva. So avyakta tattva is also called aviditat. So you have the mula prakriti, and mula prakriti's modification is this gross things that we see. And we know that in Vedas, wherever there is a jada thing that is aspect discussed, there is always a chetana aspect that is discussed. So for this mula prakriti, okay, that is called jada prakriti. For that, the Abhimani Devata is called Chetana Prakriti or Chit Prakriti or Shri Tattva or Lakshmi or Avyakta Tattva. So that is what the philosophical view of what Avyakta Tattva is. Okay. So our Chaturmukha says, this guy who is my dad, he is even different from my mom. Okay. Avyakta Tattva is Chaturmukha's mom. And his dad is Narayana himself. And Chaturmukha says, see, this person who controls everything is even different from Avyakta Tattva or Chetana Tattva. Okay? So I think we did a couple of sessions understanding what this verse, it is such an amazing verse that we spent 2 hours talking about this. Viditat tad anyadeva, aviditat tad anyadeva. Why or how? Because it is adhi, it is adhikam, it is an entirely different category altogether. Sarvottamashta sarvatra sa vishnuriti dharyatam, says Acharya in Talavakara Upanishad Bhashya. So from what Chaturmukha has told us, it is very clear that this Brahman is an entirely different ontological entity altogether. Okay. So it's almost it is impossible from what Chaturmukha has said that we are actually Brahman. Okay, it is just not possible. We are entirely different, and Brahman is an entirely different ontological entity. Is the starting point of what Chaturmukha is going to be teaching us in the subsequent verses of this particular adhyaya. So, of course, we then correlated this verse, Anyadeva tadvidita dato aviditat, with 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And it so happened that today we all recited the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita twice in our Gita recitation session. And that is the essence of this particular fourth verse, is essentially 16th, 17th, and 18th. Okay, so I'm as I've always said, I'm never tired. We have just done this twice, but I'm going to invite one of us to recite these 16, 17, 18 again. So who wants to go and recite for us, please? Shall I pick one?
Yes.
Oh yeah, go for it. Sushilji, you can do that. Yeah.
द्वाविमौ पुरुषौ लोके शरश्चाक्षर एव च क्षरः सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थोऽक्षर उच्यते उत्तमः पुरुषस्त्वन्यः परमात्मेत्युदारतः यो लोकत्रयमाविश्य बिभर्त्यव्यय ईश्वरः यस्माक्षरमतीतोऽहम् अक्षरादपि चोत्तमः अतोऽस्मि लोके वेदे च प्रतितः पुरुषोत्तमः.
Beautiful, Sushilji. Thank you so much. So, Srimad Acharya in Vishnu Tattva Nirnaya, the very first Mangalacharana sloka, captures this so beautifully. Sadagamaika Vigneyam Samatita Kshara Aksharam Narayanam Sada Vande Nirdosha Asesha Sadgunam. Samatita Kshara Aksharam. Yeah, Samyak Atita Kshara Akshara. You are different from Ksharas and Aksharas, and you can be known only through sadagamas. Such a Narayana, I worship you. You are an abode of infinite auspicious attributes and no defects, says Srimad Acharya when he goes into the Tattva Nirnaya. Beautiful verse, captures what Gita has said, 16, 17, and 18. And we have correlated this, isn't it? This Adi or Adhikam is Sarvottamashta Sarvatra, which Veda Vyasa celebrates as Purushottama, which is himself, of course. And Kutasto Akshara is Sri Tattva, or Chetana Prakriti or Chit Prakriti, which is celebrated in this verse as Aviditat, Adi. This guy is he is different from the Sri Tattva, which Gita of course says Aksharadapi cha Uttamaha. I am above this Aksharat. This Akshara is Kutastha Akshara, Aviditat or Chetana Prakriti. Then, of course, Viditat. Viditat means that we see in the universe, the Kshara, the Charat, Charat, the movable and the immovable universe that we see, which Krishna has said as Ksharaha Sarvani Bhutani. Kshara means that which has destruction. And there are four types of destruction that Acharya has given us. Swarupa Nasha, Deha Hani, Dukkha Prapti, Apurnata. So if you think about everything in the universe, yeah, they will all have some aspect of this. Okay? Whereas there is only one guy who is Akshara, never has any of these four, and that person has been celebrated by Chaturmukha as Adhikam, Purushottama. Okay? So from when you look at the Gita verses, when you look at the Kena Upanishad verse, and when you look at Tattva Nirnaya verse of Acharya, it is very clear, very clear. Okay, so that this Brahma Tattva is an entirely different category. We can never be Brahman. Some guys have this delusion, I don't know why, but we can never be Brahman from the Vedas. Okay? We can have a delusion of whatever we want, but do Vedas say that? The categorical answer is a capital No. No, the Vedas do not say this. Okay? Is the overarching view of this particular verse. Look at Upadikandanatika of Sri Jayatirtha. The Mangalacharana sloka is very important in that. And he says, Paramatmano Atyanta Bhinnasya. That is the starting point. Okay? We are infinitely different from Paramatma. That should be the first point of our philosophical journey as souls. Paramatmano Atyanta Bhinnasya स्वतः चिदानन्दात्मकस्यापि जीवस्य अनादि अविद्य काम कर्मादि निमित्तो अयं परमार्थता एव अन्यताकारः दुःखादि अनर्थः न परमेश्वर प्रसादात् ऋते अपगच्छति न च असाक्षात् कृतो असौ प्रसीदति न च अविदित स्वरूपः शक्यते साक्षात् कर्तुम् इति सकल गुणाकरतया निशेष दोष गंध विदुरयता च तं प्रतिपादयितुम् अशेष आम्नायाः प्रवर्तन्ते तद उपाकरणभूता च ब्रह्ममीमांसा इति परमार्थः. This is the summary of the Vedic philosophy as to what it is. And the very first word that Jayatirtha uses is Paramatmano Atyanta Bhinnasya Samatitaksharaksharam Aksharaadapi cha Uttamaha Ksharam Atito Aham. So these are all the words of the Vedas. Anyadeva tad viditad aviditad adi iti sushruma purvesham yenas tad vyacha chakshire. Okay. We are not done with this, dissection of this verse fully. Shvetashvatara Upanishad gives very, very clearly that there are only three entities in the universe. Jna, Agnyau, Dvav. Kshara, Atmanav, Ishate, Deva Ekaha. We have done this many times. So Shvetashvatara Upanishad says there are only three entities. Brahman, Jivas and matter. And Brahman controls the Jiva and matter. If someone is controlling something, that guy must be different from these entities. Is a basic inference from that statement that this Brahman is the controller of Jivas. Brahman is the controller of matter. Shara, Atmanau, Ishate, Deva, Ekaha. This guy is only one. Jivas are infinite. Matter, of course, there are various forms of matter. And also this Niravakasha Shruti of Mundaka Upanishad, Dvasuparana, Sayuja, Sakaya, Samana Vriksham, Parishashva Jate, Tayor, Anyaha, Pippalam Swadatti, Anashnan Anyaha, Abhichakashiti, our most popular verse of our satsang. There is the Jiva bird who is the Bhokta, the Prakriti is the Bhojyam. Then there is a Prerita who is Brahman, who is silent witness but ensures that all these activities are going on. Okay. Clear differences that are being described in Mundaka Upanishad, Shvetashvatara Upanishad. But then the Vedantic philosophy, of course, there are various strands of it, isn't it? There is one extreme view which feels that Nirguna Brahman becomes Jivas due to something called Upadhi. Yeah, Brahman and Jivas are not different, but there is this something called Upadhi that makes Nirguna Brahman become Jivas. So you and me are Nirguna Brahman hanging out and doing this satsang, literally. Okay? But we do not know that we are Nirguna Brahman at this point. That is our plight, so says one school. Okay? The other point is, could that material world that we are in, and we are experiencing this material world, and this extreme view from one of the Vedantic schools says that even this material world is a superimposition of Brahman. They actually do not exist, that they are mithya. Okay? So that there is that extreme view, but which does not go with what is being described so far, certainly in this Kena Upanishad verse number 4. So, as you know, so far in the third verse, we had an introduction to something called Pramana Lakshanam from Srimad Acharya. And in the fourth verse, we looked at Tattva Sankyana and Tattva Viveka. Now, for those of us who, some of us may be interested to go into the deeper studies of these aspects of it so that we get what is true knowledge and what is false knowledge, as described in Isha Upanishad, as we all know. So if you want to know that, then you have to go to this piece of work. I just want to introduce it. Some of you would have read this already, but for those of us who are not familiar with this, my intention here is just to introduce this ideas about these great works. This is called Khandana Traya, which is written by our Acharya. Part of what is called Dasha Prakarana. Dasha Prakarana also includes Tattva Sankyana, Tattva Viveka, Pramana Lakshana. And these three works, it's called Upadhi Khandanam, Prapancha Mityatva Anumana Khandanam, Mayavada Khandanam. So these three works of Acharya, which these are like missiles, yeah. These are like supersonic missiles. Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal pieces of philosophical work that puts the monistic view in serious doubt. Yeah. And I haven't come across any rebuttals or comprehensive answers to some of the questions that Acharya has posed in these three works. Ajnata akila samvetuhu gatatena kutashchana. How is it possible that an omniscient Brahman can be superimposed by ignorance? That is a starting point. Ajnata ajnana asambhavadeva tanmatam akilam apakrutam. Yeah. So how can ignorance go on? Brahman is the basic question. Where did this ignorance come from? How did this ignorance went on superimposed on an omniscient Brahman? And how did that result in a jiva in ignorance? No answer. Yeah, and of course the Prapancha Mithyatva Anumana Kantana is a complete work in its own, which gives you 14 different defects in the syllogism of Vimatam Mithya Drishyatvad Yaddidam Tattata Yata Sampratipannam Ityukte Jagato Abhavat. It goes on. Okay. For those of you interested, you can go into this work. So the intention is to bring forth this information that there are other schools of Vedantic philosophy starting from the 10th century to some extent, and then crystallizing fully in the 12th century with Srimad Acharya. And from Srimad Acharya's work, other schools of philosophy, such as the Gaudiya system and so on, come up from Madhvacharya's philosophy, and they have over centuries rebutted this monistic view that there is only Nirguna Brahman, all others are Mithya. Okay, this is a very interesting piece of study for those of us who are serious students of Vedanta, that we need to get into these kind of discussions and understand what is the solution, what is actually going on here. We just cannot accept just because somebody said so. We have to make our own investigation. Okay, so that is what Tattvavada has done. Anyadev tadviditat ato aviditad adi iti sushruma purvesham yenas tadvyacha chakshire. So Chaturmukha said, this is what I have learned, I have heard from the ancients who have told me this. Okay, so basically this last line is telling iti sushruma purvesham yenas tadvyacha chakshire. Sushruma, as we did last week, Raghavendra Tirtha gives us meaning of this. Shrutavantah smaha sushruma. Okay, and then Vyachachakshire, Srimadacharya gives Vyakyatavantaha. Yeah, so who are the Vyakyatavantahas for Chaturmukha Brahma? So whose teaching or whose speech has Chaturmukha Brahma heard that Anyadeva Tadvidita Dato Aviditat? Whom has he heard from? This guy himself is the first of the born. Okay, he is the first sentient being to appear in during creation. He is the most ancient among sentient beings. Is there somebody who is even more ancient than him? That is the Paramatma. Paramatma is the most ancient because even before creation, he was the only guy who was there. Okay, and this Paramatma is he's celebrated as Purusha. One of the etymology of Purusha is Purvameva Asam. The one that is ancient is Purusha. So this is a guy who was there even before creation. Even before Chaturmukha came, he was there. And that guy, when Chaturmukha came, Paramatma teaches him all this. That is what Chaturmukha says to Rudras. Look, I've learnt all this from Narayana, as captured in Srimad Bhagavatam, that we are all familiar with. Tene Brahma Hrudayadi Kavaye Muhyanti Yat Surayaha. And also in Bhagavatam, in other sections, we have also learned like Hayagriva Namaka Paramatma teaches Chaturmukha, Hamsa Namaka Paramatma teaches Chaturmukha, and Narayana's avatar Vedavyasa, of course, teaches Vayu and all the Rijuganas, and he is doing still that in the liberated Chaturmukhas are also doing that, says the Vedas. Okay. So this is what we have done so far about this verse, and I think we have done a reasonable amount of contemplation around the fourth verse. Link it up with the third verse. Okay. So the beauty of linking third and fourth verse, and our gurus teach this up about seeing mathematical philosophy in numbers. And every time we have an opportunity, we always do that, isn't it? So if you look at the Keno Upanishad, the third verse, okay, the third verse has 31. Okay, it's Bhurik or Nichrit. So it's Nichrit Anushtup. Okay, so it has got 31 syllables. Then you have the Keno Upanishad mantra, the fourth one has got 32 syllables. So if you add 31 and 32, you get 63. Okay, so Bannanji Govindacharya tells us 63 can be divided by 9. If you divide 63 by 9, divided by 9, you get 7. Okay, 9 is a syllable of Brihati Chandas. Okay, nine syllables of 4 lines is what is called Brihati Chandas, and we know that in the Vedic rishis, whenever they see a mantra in the Vedas, they would always want to convert it into Brihati. Somehow that is a play of numbers. Any chandas in the Vedas can somehow be converted into a Brihati of various lines. So here it is 7 lines of Brihati. 9 times 7 is 63. 7 lines of Brihati. 9 times 7. And the Gurus teach us that look, when you think about that 7, because all that has been discussed in third and fourth is everything in existence. Yeah, the whole thing, that everything that exists is being discussed here. Number 7 actually encompasses everything in the universe. Philosophy of 7, and I think we have done this before. Look at Purusha Shukta. Saptasyasan paridayaha trishapta samidaha krutaha. Sapta. Go back to that Purusha Shukta, and we did this philosophy of 7 at that point. In Mundaka Upanishad, there is one beautiful verse talks only about Sapta. Sapta pranaha prabhavanti tasmat, Sapta archishaha samidaha, Sapta homaha, Sapta ime lokaha yeshu charanti prana, guhashayaha nihitaha, Sapta, Sapta. 7, 7, 7. There is 7 everywhere in the universe. These two verses summarizes everything in the universe. 7 pranas, 7 archis, 7 objects, 7 homas, 7 stations, 7 oceans, 7 mountains, 7 rivers, 7 chakras, 7 rays of the 7 sun, 7 days, 7 colors of fire, 7 borders of Agni Kunda, 7 chandas, 7 musical notes, 7 dhatus, 7 ductal glands, and so on. I have only captured a few. So the gurus tell us that when you look at this third verse and fourth verse, add them together, 63 divided by 9, 7 lines of Brihati, the 7 that comes up there gives you everything about this great entity, which Srimad Acharya summarizes. What does this entity do? Srishti Sthiti Samhritishta Niyamo Ajnana Bodhane Bandho Mokshaha Sukha Dukkham Avruthir Jyotirevacha. Yeah. Vishnuna asya samastasya samakya sayogataha. This is Vishnu is looking after all these sevens. He is the independent controller of all the sevens that exist in the universe. This was the Acharya declares in his Bhashyas. So that is the beauty of third and fourth. Okay. So now we make slow pravesha into the next verse. So after 3 or 4 sessions of contemplation on the third and the fourth verse, we move to the fifth verse for the second half of today's satsang. Okay. So of course, I don't have to say this again. It is an amazing verse. But the beauty of the next 5, that is 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So you got 9, 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 5 verses, okay, are grouped together. Okay, that is the way to study these mantras. Okay, group 5 to 9 together because they're giving a similar kind of concepts. Okay, but repeated 5 times. Okay. So there are 5 lines here. They talk about 5 different things. What are those 5 different things? It is always mind, breath, speech, eyes, and ears. Okay. As we did at the beginning of the satsang, Manaha, Pranaha, Vak, Chakshu, Shrotram. That was the very first verse. Second verse said Shrotram, Mano, Vak, Pranaha, Chakshuhu. Again 5. Okay. Shrotrasya Shrotram, Manasa, Mano, Yadvachaha Vacham, Savu Pranasya Pranaha. Chakshushaschkshuhu atimuchyadiraha pretyasma lokadamruta bhavati. 5. Ears, mind, speech, breath, and eyes. Okay. Mind, breath, speech, eyes, and ears. Speech, mind, eyes, ears, and breath. Look at the sequences. Okay. So there are 5, but they are all in different sequences. Okay. So let's park there for a minute and think about this. I know we have done this before, isn't it? The significance of the sequence in which these mantras place this jnana indriyas, if you like. Okay, so anybody wants to, come in here and share their thoughts as to why the first verse used mind, breath, speech, eyes, and ears, whereas the second verse then put ears, mind, speech, breath, and eyes. Anybody wants to remind us about that? So let's park there for 20 seconds.
Madhuji,
Anandji, go for it.
the first one is like internal to external sense organs. Like the mind is sort of an internal organ. As you come back to breath, speech, the external sense organs, and the sequence is the essential organs for spiritual progress. That's the order which helps us progress in our spiritual studies.
Yeah.
And also the order of appearance, which you said during our when a baby is born, the order of appearance is like that: mind, breath, speech, eyes, and ears. And that's what I remember.
Thank you very much, Anandji. What about for the second verse? Ears, mind, speech, breath, and eyes. What is the significance or the sequence of that? Why is that different from the first verse? I think we discussed that. Any suggestions, any thoughts on that, Anandji and others? Sorry, we had somebody. No, no problem. So the second one, as you know, is you hear something, then you do manana, then you teach to somebody else, then you go into dhyana using prana, and when you do the dhyana, eventually you have sakshatkara, which is the eyes. So ears, mind, speech, and breath and eyes gives you the sequence of the sadhana that you do, so that you know about this person. Okay. Now, if you go to this verse, this 5 to 9 is important, because so 1 and 2 had 5, whereas 2 and the third verse had only 3. Okay, and the fourth verse, of course, spoke about how this entity is entirely different. So now the verses 5 to 9, which is 5 verses, is actually a further expansion of what was discussed in the second verse. Okay, further elaboration. So this is a beautiful set of words, and there is a whole lot of philosophy here. Hopefully we'll do some justice today. Yad vacha anabhyuditam yena vag abhyudyate tadeva brahma tvam viddi nedam yadidam upasate yen manasa na manute yena ahur manomatam tadeva brahma tvam viddi nedam yadidam upasate यच्चक्षुषा न पश्यति येन चक्षुंषि पश्यति तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यच्छ्रोत्रेण न शृणोति येन श्रोत्रम् इदं श्रुतं तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यत् प्राणेन न प्रणीति येन प्राणः प्रणीयते तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् upasate, says Chaturmukha Brahma to Sadashiva. To expand this philosophy further, there are so many things to observe in this. There are so many things, even before we go into the philosophy of it, there are so many other things to observe in this. Okay, so each verse from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they're all set in Anushtup Chandas. Okay. Rohini is the Devata of Anushtup Chandas. But there are slight differences. If one is a purist and reads these mantras very carefully, our acharyas, teachers, look, there are differences made. The first verse has got 31 syllables. The second verse has got 32 syllables, whereas the third, fourth, and the fifth have got 33 syllables each. So technically, it is only the sixth verse that is a pure Anushtup. The fifth one is Nichrit Anushtup because it's got one syllable less. And the last 3 verses are Bhurik Anushtup that they've got one syllables more. Okay. So why all this and all? It's interesting. I think it's interesting information. But of course, if you're a rishi like Bandanji, you will think about something even more deeper. So Bhuri Kanishtup 33. So why more? To say God's greatness, extra syllables is used. So there is an example that's given. So much. If when we in English we say so much, sometimes this is so much. So when we put that put dirgha, you are able to express that this is so big. Although it is only so much, we say so much. Okay. Similarly, you use Buri Kanishtum. You extend those syllables to say, oh, this God is so great. Okay. To explain those kind of emotions, rishis are able to pick up these kind of extra syllables in this, Apaurushya Vedas. So I hope you will find this interesting about why it is in Buri Kanishtu. Then here is about the numbers. Previously we saw 63 divided by 9 equals 7, and 7 times 9 is 63. So the 3 and 4 essentially is 7 lines of Brihati. Here it's even more interesting. 31, 32, 33, 33, 33, 4 is 162. 9 times 18 is 162. Okay. So 9, as I told you, if you have 9 syllables, it's called Brihati, a line in Brihati. That Brihati Chandas is classically 9 times 4 equals 36 equals Brihati Chandas. Here it is 18 Brihati lines with 9 syllables each. When you put all these 5 verses together, okay, 18 Brihati lines with 9 syllables. So who is going to remind us what is the importance of 18? So that is why these 5 verses are amazing. It is 18 Brihati lines with 9 syllables each. So who is going to quickly tell us who is 18? What is the importance of 18?
18 is Lord Narayana himself.
Thank you, Saptarshi. Yes, Saptarshi is, and welcome to our satsang. So Saptarshi is one of our new satsangis who joined, I think, from last week. Thank you very much, Saptarshi. That's correct. 18 is Narayana himself. Perhaps maybe you or anybody else want to explain why he is 18 is Narayana. Does that mean what about 17 and below? What are those? Who wants to explain that?
17 is Mahalakshmi
17.
and 16 is the Mahatattva Brahma.
Yeah. Thank you, Saptarshi. Yes, you got that right. So we have to go to our Shat Prashna Upanishad and get those ideas from the 6th verse. So you're right. 16th is Prana Tattva or Chaturmukha. They're all the same. Prana and Vayu are all the same. Then the Jiva's Abhimani is Prana Tattva, and then the 15 or the material coverings is the Jiva operates in. 17 is the Shri Tattva, the Avyakta Sattva, which has put the Jivas into material world, and then the 18 is Vishnu or Narayana himself. Okay, so the 18 is talking about Brahman. Yeah. So if you see the last word, Tadeva Brahma Tvam Vidhi, Tadeva Brahma, Brahman. Okay, this is Chaturmukha Brahma talking to Sadashiva. So when he says Brahma, it means Brahman, who is Narayana. Brahma Shabdashta Vishnaveva. So 18 is Brahman. So you can see those kind of mathematical clues as to what this verse is getting into. The 5 to 9 verses. Now, here is another approach to it. So it is talking about speech and mind, eyes and ears, and breath in that order. Okay, speech and mind. Speech, Abhimani of speech is Parvati. Abhimani of mind is Shiva. Remember, when we spoke about speech, there are two things, right? There is the organ of speech and the speech that comes out from the organ of speech. There are differences. The organ of speech, Abhimani, is Agni, whereas the speech that comes out, Abhimani, is Parvati. Okay? And mind, Abhimani, we all know, is Rudra. So the first two lines talk about Shiva Tattva and Parvati. Okay. Parvati is 7th rank in the Vedic pantheon. Shiva is the 5th rank. That is why he is Panchamukhi. Okay. And also he is the controller of various fives. Pancha Tadmatras, Pancha Bhutas, Pancha, 5 components of the mind and so on. So it's, Rudra Tattva is amazing. And why he is 5 is deep philosophy, as we have done before. So the first two, they are all set in pairs. So the first one is Shiva and Parvati. Yeah, and again our acharyas remind us in Katha Upanishad, for example, it says, Etchedva Vang Manasi Prajnaha Tadechekshva Prajnaha Atmani, and so on. So these two guys are very closely related. They are husband and wife, right? Shiva is consort as Parvati, and not surprisingly, because what the mind thinks, the speech comes out. Okay, not usually the other way around. For us, it seems to be the other way around, but traditionally, you think something and then you speak. Okay, so Shiva and Parvati, they go together. Okay. Then you have the line 3, line 7 and 8 talk about eyes and ears. Okay. Eyes is Surya, Abhimani. Ears is, of course, Chandra. So here is an interesting question I have. Both of them are in the 12th rank. So who is higher than, so among Surya and Chandra, who is higher and who is lower? It's a quick quiz. They are in the same class, but one is higher, another one is lower. Anybody wants to pick that one up? Among Surya and Chandra, who is higher?
I think it's Chandra.
Very good, Anand ji. Thank you very much. Chandra is slightly higher. Surya is just a little bit below, but they are in the same class. Okay. And then there is this separate entity called the breath, the prana, which is the head of all the Tattvabhimani Devatas. So he is described in the last verse, 9th verse. So mind and speech, ears and eyes, and the breath. That is the Abhimani Devatas. And our Prana Tattva, of course, is the 3rd rank. So never forget this kind of arrangement as to why Chaturmukha has decided to put these verses in that order to teach Rudra something. Okay, some deep philosophy. What is that philosophy? We've still not gone into the details of it. Because if you look at the verse, yeah, if you look at the arrangement of this verse, that itself is, it gives you some real deeper philosophical way of interpreting what is it that Chaturmukha is telling us. Yad vacha anabhyuditam yena vagabhyudyate yan manasa manute yena ahur manomatam yat चक्षुषा न पश्यति येन चक्षुंषि पश्यति यच्छ्रोत्रेण न शृणोति येन श्रोत्रम् इदं श्रुतम् यत् प्राणेन न प्रणीति येन प्राणः प्रणीयते. So these are all 5 different lines, but they are all finishing off with the same second line. Tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yadidam upasate. Tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yadidam upasate. And 5 times Chaturmukha Brahma has said. Okay. So when this 5 times it's being said, it's of great importance. Okay. So this Tadeva Brahmatvam Viddhi Nedam Edidam Upasate has been used 5 times in this verse, not an accident, or not that Chaturmukha Brahma did not have any other words to choose from and he's constantly repeating. No, in Shastras there are 2 things. There is the Abhyasa, okay, and that is reiteration. So you stress again and again so that we get that knowledge firmed up. So that is called abhyasa. That is called avritti. In fact, Veda Vyasa has said avrittihi asakriti upadeshat. Go again and again and again and revise so that you gets firmed up in your head. Avrittihi asakriti upadeshat. Avrittihi is abhyasa. Whereas there is another thing called punarukti. Okay, punarukti means repetition, saying the same thing again and again. We tend to do to our children, say again and again and again something. So that's punarukti. That's a dosha. Yeah, this is not punarukti. This is avritti, which is called abhyasa. Abhyasa again and again. Okay, tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam edidam upasate. Why? Because when you see 5, there is a great importance. So go to our Brahma Sutra sessions that we have done some few years ago. Tattu samanvayat, of understanding the scriptures and their independent and their importance. And Veda Vyasa said, if the Veda says something, there has to be if it says again and again, there has to be a great philosophical significance. So Brihat Samhita, Acharya has given this reference for us. Anvaya Upapatyadi Lingam in Bhashya, but in Brihat Samhita, Upakrama, Upasamhara, Abhyasa, Apurvata, Phalam, Artavado, Upapatti, Chalingam, Tatpariyam Nirnaye. Beautiful, amazing reference that Acharya has given us. Yeah. So when you do Vedic interpretations, you have to use certain rules of interpretation. So these come from Purva Mimamsa Shastras. What are those rules of interpretations? Upakrama means introduction. Upasamhara means conclusion. Abhyasa means, do you see this avritti, something that is being said again and again. So it becomes important. Apurvata, something novel. Phalam, something that is beneficial. Upapatti, something that is logical. Those the strength of interpretation. Okay, this is called Tatparya Lingas. Abhyasa is very important. It is It is even higher in strength compared to Upakrama and Upasamhara. Abhyasa. That is what this verse is. So this is really what our Veda Vyasa, our founding father, has said. Tattu Samanvayat, where Abhyasa is there. So this particular verse actually gives us an opportunity to actually put it into practical application of what Veda Vyasa, Krishna Dvaipayana has told us. So that is why these verses are supremely important. Okay, so we got about 15 minutes. Let's see if we can at least do some kind of a justice to it. Okay, so yeah, let's look at what is the first line. So I'm going to take the second lines of each verse separately, because that is a big discussion about the second line, which comes 5 times, so it has to have great philosophical significance. So we're gonna dissect it letter by letter and understand it. Whereas the first lines of the 5 mantras are fairly easy for us to navigate at this point of time. Yadvacha anabhyutitam yena vag abhyudyate. Yadvacha anabhyutitam. So let's split it out. Anabhyuditam. Anabhyutitam. Okay. Uditam means spoken. Abhi means abhitaha. From all levels or from all directions completely. Okay. An means not, opposite. Okay. Yad vacha anabhyuditam, which cannot be expressed by the organ of speech fully. That which cannot be expressed by speech, that which cannot be conveyed through words fully. Okay, so we are familiar with these ideas, right? Already. So this is easy to navigate. So yad vacha anabhyudita means these three. And this is the first level of interpretation. The second level, of course, is the Abhimani Devatas of Vak. They also do not know him fully. The organs of speech, Agni Devata, or the speech herself, Parvati, are not able to describe or know about him fully. But Yena Vag Abhyudyate, because of that principle, this organ of speech functions. The speech also is there, makes it happen. Okay? That which we cannot express by speech, but the speech operates because of him. That person is Brahman. Tadeva Brahma is the next line. Yeah. So Yadvacha anabhyuditam yena vag abhyudyate tadeva Brahma. So you put it every time. So you can remind yourselves. That which cannot be expressed by speech, but the speech operates because of it. That which cannot know him, that Parvati and Agni that cannot know him fully, but they operate because of him. Tadeva Brahma. That is that Brahman. Okay? There is just third deeper levels of looking at it. Yadvacha anabhyutitam. This Brahman we have just seen in verse 3 and verse 4 that he is completely non-material. He does not need the organ of speech or the deity of speech to speak. Vacha anabhyudita. He doesn't need these things. He doesn't need a speech. He doesn't need the organs of speech or the deities to speak. But he's speaking all the time. Vedas come from his mouth, isn't it? During creation, he's speaking all the time. But he doesn't need vocal cords, material vocal cords. He's got something else that speaks. Isha Upanishad captures this, if you remember. Sapariyagat, Shukram, Akayam, Avranam, Asnaviram, Shuddham, Apapaviddham. And then, of course, the the third, fourth lines are very important. Kavir Manishihi, Paribuhu, Swayambuhu, Yata Tatyato Artan, Vedata, Shashvatibhyaha, Samibhyaha. So this guy is completely non-material. But then what is he? What is he? Yette Rupam Kalyanatamam. So he is described as Akayam, no material body. Asnaviram. Snavira means what? Muscles, nerves, and all that are called Snavirams. He is Asnaviram. He is Akayam. But still he is talking. And he is non-material. So here is a quick quiz. If he is non-material, what is his composition? What is this Brahman made of as per the Vedas? So who is going to give us a quick answer to that? If he is not material, what is his constituents? What is he made of? What have we learned from our Upanishad so far? That what is he made of?
Satchitananda.
Beautiful, Pratibhaji. Thank you very much. That is what he's made of. Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Minimum those three, but he's also got lots of other things that we don't know about. But these three we should know. Thank you, Pratibhaji, for that. Yan manasa na manute yena ahur manomatam. Yan manasa na manute, which cannot be reached by material mind. We have done this. B. Abhimani Devatas of mind do not know him fully. Who are the Abhimani Devatas? Not just Rudra. We got a whole slew of chaps who are involved in the control of the mind. Yeah. Rudra is there. Garuda, Sesha, Indra, Kama, Aniruddha, Brihaspati, Chandra, Mitra, Varuna, Agni, Parjanya, Lakshmi, Chaturmukha. All these are celebrated in the Vedas are Abhimanis. Okay, starting from Rudra, of course. And you have to go up. So Lakshmi Chaturmukha is above Rudra, and then these guys are all below Garuda Sesha. Rudras are these Indra, Kama, and so on. So these guys do not know him fully. Yena ahur manomatam, because of him the material mind functions. Okay, so this is easy for us to understand. And if you adopt the previous principle, this person, this Brahman doesn't have material mind body. He's Sachitananda. He doesn't have material mind, and he doesn't need Rudra and all other these guys to help him think, because he's always thinking Satapo Tapasva. You remember the Taittiriya Upanishad that talks about creation. He thought, and when he thought, creation happened. Satapastaptva idam sarvam asrajata. He thinks, but he thinks how? Not with the material mind like you and me, how we think. Our thinking always has an ignorance as a part of it. His tapa alochane is full of knowledge. Satchit ananda, sat, chit. His knowledge is infinite, as we have just said in our Kevala Pramana of Tattva Pramana Lakshanam. He is infinite knowledge, and he can just think effortlessly, spontaneously through his non-material body. He does not need the material body. Yen manasa na manute. Okay. Yena ahur manomatam. By him, the material mind, the deities of mind, they function. So as Pratibhaji answered, his organ of mind is not made of the organs of mind like you and me. He's entirely different. You could say Sat, Chit, and Ananda, but whatever else is there, we don't know. Okay. Yachakshusha na pashyati yena chakshumshi pashyati, which cannot be seen by material eyes. Abhimani Devata's eyes do not know him fully, but because of him material eyes function. Yena chakshumshi pashyati tadeva brahma. Yeah. So we know this Purusha Shukta verses, Chaksho, Suryo, Ajayata, they come from Brahman. So the Brahman doesn't need these fellows. Yet Chakshusha na pashyati, he is non-material. He does not need material eyes to see. But only by him the material eyes function. He is Sahasra Akshaha. He is Aneka Vaktru Netram, as Gita has said. Okay? But his eyes is completely non-material. Satchidananda Swarupa. He is completely non-material. His eyes are non-different from his ears and are non-different from his mind. His eyes can hear. His ears can speak. So it's all those kind of things. That is the Achintya Adbhuta Shakti of Paramatma, that he can do anything. Okay? Unlike us, who are endowed with this very limited sense organs, and yet we think we are the center of the universe. Okay? That is the ideas that Chaturmukha wants us to think. Yena shrotrena na shrunoti, yena shrotram idam shrutam. Okay, which cannot be known by hearing through material ears fully, because Vedas may be infinite. We can hear as much as we can, but still it cannot fully describe him. Abhimani Devatas of ears do not know him fully. We talk about Chandra, but of course there is a whole lot of the Devatas of directions who are also the Abhimanis of ears, like Kubera, Ishana, Indra, Agni, Yama, Nirriti, Varuna, Vayu, Brahma, Sesha, all these guys of directions, along with Chandra, are Abhimanis of ears in Vedic philosophy, because hearing travels from all directions and we capture the sound waves from all directions. Although these chaps cannot know about him fully, they can operate only because of him. Because of him, material ears here, the Abhimani Devatas have some sense of knowing Tadeva Brahma. Yena Shrotram Idam Shrutam Tadeva Brahma. He is non-material. He does not need material ears to hear. But only by whom the material ears, the deities of the ears function, Tadeva Brahma. Okay, so Chaturmukha is telling this again and again. It feels like these verses are fairly easy for us to navigate. What is the fifth one said? Yat pranena na praniti yena pranaha praniyate. Remember, prana is all the previous fours are in pairs. Then the fifth one is in isolation. Prana. He is the head of all Abhimani Devatas, and we have done this million times in this satsang. Okay. येन प्राणेन न प्रणीति येन प्राणः प्रणीयते यत् प्राणेन न प्रणीति. Okay, so by without deep breaths we cannot, without breathing we cannot serve, we cannot be alive. Abhimani devatas, no, this is Abhimani devatas of this is a wrong, this is a typo here, so this should be prana tattva here, who is actually making all of us breathe. Okay, even for prana tattva and our diaphragm and our lungs and so on that is involved in breathing here, they operate because of him. Because of him, all breathe. Yeah. Pranad vayu rajayata. Even for prana tattva, he cannot operate independently. This prana tattva does all sorts of actions. He cannot operate independently. He is prompted by this pranasya pranaha, because this prana comes from this pranasya prana. Pranad vayu rajayata. But this guy, this is very interesting. So the material bodies, they breathe. Prana tattva also does various actions. All these guys have to breathe, and they are dependent upon this pranasya pranaha. What about the pranasya pranaha himself? Does he breathe? Okay, this is a very interesting question. Does he breathe? Because after all, we know something is living by looking at it and seeing it breathing, isn't it? That it's breathing, then we know that this entity is alive. What about this Brahman? Does he breathe? He is non-material. He does not need the help of breathing to be alive. Okay, this is a very interesting concept. But by whom all breathe? Even prana functions because of him. Okay. So this is this fifth verse is an interesting link to what is called Nasadiya Sukta. Okay, so there is a very famous sukta called the Nasadiya Sukta of Rigveda, 10th mandala. Okay, and I'll be honest, this is one of my most favorite sukta. Hopefully, at some point we'll do this Nasadiya Sukta, because there is so much of misinterpretation out there. The proper interpretation of Nasadiya Sukta is given by Srimad Acharya in Tattvodyota, his work called Tattvodyota, where he actually gives the right view in which Nasadiya Sukta should be understood. But there are all this pre-creation hymn that people talk about. What does it say? Nasada sinno sadasit tadanim nasid rajo no vyoma aparo yat kim avariha kuhakasya sharaman ambakkimasid gahanam gabiram न मृत्युर आसीद अमृतम न तरही न रात्रया अह्न आसीद प्रकेतः Anidavatam Swadaya Tadekam. So this is where I wanted to come and pick it up with this particular verse. Anid Avatam Swadaya Tad Ekam. So this is talking about this pre-creation, isn't it? Where air was not there, space, nothing was there. But before that, what was there? Anid. There was one person, Avatam, breathing windlessly. Okay, so look at that beautiful set of words. Anidavatam. Breathing windlessly, there was one entity. Swadaya, independent. Tat ekam, that one entity was there before creation. Anidavatam Swadaya Tad ekam. He does not need the help of breathing to be alive, but he is always there. So 5 beautiful sets of verse, and the A and the B, I'll make the correction before we do the next session. But the C part of it is beautiful. That this guy does not need, this breathing apparatus to be alive. He controls the prana tattva himself. So we are almost coming to the end of this. After saying all these 5 things, this is what we will hopefully pick up next week, because this is incredible. Last views. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi na idam yadidam upasate. That guy is Brahman. And then 5 times it goes on and talks about it. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi na idam yadidam upasate. So hopefully at that point, na idam is very, very, very important. Na idam yadidam upasate. It is not this, it is not this, it is not this matter in front of us, it is entirely different. That verily is the Brahman that I've told you so far, that he is independent, doesn't require anything in the material universe. And whatever we do in the material universe, assuming this is Brahman, idols, deities, and so on, this is not this, not this, not this. Okay, so this is a deep concept of Vedic philosophy. And as Hindus, I think we need to get this firmed up. This particular verse, Tadeva Brahmatvam Vidhi, in the previous verse, Na idam yadidam upasate. So, what is it? Na idam yadidam upasate. We will deal with this in the next satsang. The second line will pick it up in the next satsang and possibly spend about an hour or so contemplating on it. So, I hope you found today's, review of the previous four verses and a pravesha into verse 5 to 9 interesting. So thank you very much for joining us for today's Chintana. Any questions? We will take it up at this point. Hare Krishna and Krishna Pranamastu.
Sir, I have a small question. Not regarding to today's session, but from the Kena Upanishad itself. So, in all of the commentaries of Acharya, he is giving the background, right? Like who is the guru, who is the disciple here. But any idea, like from where he is finding, like how he is getting to know that he is the guru, and this is happening in a certain place, like Meru Mountain and all. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So interesting question. So I think the key answer to that, thank you very much, Shaptarshiji. The key answer to that is every Upanishad that has been discussed, there is always a Rishi, there is always a Guru, and then there is a Chandas that is being discussed. So there is always a Rishi and a Guru. Okay, without a Rishi and Guru, that is the whole meaning of Upanishad, right? Upa and Nishad. So who is the Guru? Who is the Sishya? It's always described in all the Upanishads. Okay, so some schools have not paid attention to this. Who is the guru and who is the sishya for this Upanishad? And by tradition, every Upanishad that needs to be discussed has to have a guru and sishya. Now, our view of Srimad Acharya is he is the Jivottama, he is the Sarvajna. Yeah, and Sarvatra Alochane Sarva Vishyam. So he is the most omniscient among the jivas, and he has given us this view about this is the background to it. Okay, so I would just take that as a background for this. But also what you should do is you should also go to the previous sections of the Keno, before Keno Upanishad. What are the things that is going on in Talavakara Brahmanam? Okay, remember this Keno Upanishad is also called Talavakara Upanishad. Talavakara Upanishad is only part of the Talavakara Brahmanam. Talavakara Brahmanam only, even in the Talavakara Brahmanam, much of it is not left. But what my Anusandhana is, Acharya at that point of time in the 12th century, when he wrote this and told that this happened in the Meru mountain, that this was in the Vaijayanta peak, that this was the conversation, he, as you know, Acharya had collected, he traveled throughout India and he collected all the manuscripts and he had it in his library and he provided us with that evidence. So what is clear from my side is this is not, this is not a made up stuff. This is with evidence that is available. The second point is if Acharya tells me something, that is the final statement. The third point there is when Acharya had composed the Bhashyas, there was nobody from the other schools who had actually expressed a saying, so where do you get all these references? There was no rebuttal of what the Guru and Sishya tradition that Acharya has given at that point of time. I'm not aware, but if there is some work, I would want to look at it. I'm not aware of, say, a rebuttal from another school of Vedanta saying that where did you get this Guru and Sishya and so on. So we have not had that. So I would take those three lines of thought. But for somebody like me, if Acharya has said something, that is the truth, because he is a Sarvagnya Muni. In the Mayavada Kandana, he says Sarvagnya Munina. So that is something that I don't know whether I had this here. And he said, I am the Sarvagnya Muni. I am saying this. Take it from that. So that is how I have seen this. I've kind of understood who is the Rishi and the Guru for this. but it is not something in the tradition of other Vedantic schools. And what is very clear is you cannot start an Upanishad Chintana without acknowledging who the Guru and Sishya is. And I would sometimes be a bit amazed when there is some other discussions in somebody else. They don't even recognize who the Guru Sishya is, and I don't know how they can do an Upanishad Chintana. So I hope that answers your question, but it's a very interesting question. Thank you very much, Shaptarshi.
Thank you so much, sir. Even I also agree that yeah, no other schools actually complained about it, and they also accepted his commentaries. So yeah, but I think what happened maybe as many of the resources are lost nowadays, and those sources are not there. But yeah, but the pity is the other schools they never mention when they say something about the Upanishad. They don't mention about this guru and who is the Shishya. So that's very amazing about Acharya's work. He's always telling us the background, and that's very fascinating, very nice. Thanks, Madhuji. Thanks.
Thank you, Saptarshi. Any other questions? Okay, so if there are no further questions, so brief announcements. So we'll carry on with our Upanishad Chintana next Sunday. I'm sure it'll be possible. I'm doing some travel and I'll be back in Nottingham around lunchtime, so it should be possible. And then after that, we will still carry on with the Upanishad for 2 more weeks, and the Gita chapter 7 part C is happening end of the month. Yeah, 27th, I think we are doing chapter part C. And then there is we have always taken a summer break in August for 4 weeks, take a break, and then do whatever holidaying, whatever else that we do, and then catch up with our satsang again in September. So we will start off with chapter 8 that Anandji is going to be leading on Bhagavad Gita. So two more Upanishad Chintana, then chapter 7 part C, then break for 4 weeks, summer holidays, catch up again in September with chapter 8 from Anandji. Okay, so that's the plan. So yeah, excellent. So can I get so whom we have here? So let's pick Shushrut ji today. Shushrut, please, if you can take us through Om and we close today's session. So it looks like Shushrut has got some audio. So maybe I'll Anand, do you want to take us through Om, please?
Yes, sure. Om.
Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe. See you again next Sunday. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.